I am excited to be with you guys for a couple of reasons. One is I rarely get to spend a weekend at home. And so it's been nice to be here this weekend and to stay home and experience worship with my church family. So that's been great. But I appreciate the opportunity, Keith. Thank you to present tonight. What I want to do is I want to go through a little bit about the history of World Bible School, because many of you are probably familiar with it, but you are familiar with it because maybe your grandmother or your mother or somebody back several 10, 20 years ago used to do correspondence with the paper lessons. Or maybe you're just not that familiar with it. So I want to walk through that. But then I want to tell you kind of what's been going on and what we're about. And then we'll talk just briefly about how you can kind of fit into that. So one of the first things is our mission. For several years, our mission or our tagline has been You Sharing Jesus, because our mission is to equip you to be able to share Jesus. So what we've developed and what World Bible School really at its core is about creating tools that you as an individual Christian can share the gospel. It's not about how much we do or what we can do, because in and of itself, all we're doing is putting these tools together and trying to help people connect the dots and connect people who are searching with those who want to teach. And so that is our mission. Our mission is to help the brotherhood spread the gospel. Well, let's see if it'll... Okay. So Jimmy Lovell was a man who was born in Tennessee, moved to California, was a salesman for the DuPont company. And he sold dynamite. And he was also a crack shot. So one of the first jobs he had, this gentleman, was he would take and they'd put dynamite in areas, and then he would be off however far, and he'd shoot the dynamite, blow it up, that kind of stuff. But Jimmy Lovell happened to be a pretty good dynamite salesman. Anybody heard of the Hoover Dam? Jimmy Lovell happened to be somebody who was involved with selling the dynamite that went to the Hoover Dam and to that project. So he was a quite successful man in Southern California. He's actually one of the gentlemen who helped get started a university called Pepperdine. I don't know if you guys knew about that, but he was involved in that. So I tell you that because this was a man of action, and he started a magazine called Action, where he liked to send it out. You know how everybody today has a podcast? We have a lot of people today, they have podcasts or they have a radio show, but everybody has podcasts. Well, back in the 20s and in the 30s and 40s, it wasn't podcast, it was newspapers. So they do a brotherhood newspaper and they write it up, send it up. Well, he had something like that. But one of the things that he got intrigued by was correspondence courses for our soldiers in World War II. So what he did was he funded correspondence courses to go to soldiers in World War II through the Lawrence Avenue congregation in Nashville, Tennessee. That is now the Concord Road congregation. But Jimmy had this idea, I'm going to send these correspondence courses to our GIs, right? So we're going to do this. And so he did that. He funded this. He worked with the Lawrence Avenue. They sent it out. And then this gentleman on the bottom is a guy named C.A.O. Essen. You guys probably have never heard of him. If you live in the country of Nigeria and you are a member of the church, I promise you have heard of this gentleman. So C.A.O. Essen was a retired police officer, and he was fed up with the churches around in Nigeria because he was searching, and none of the churches followed what he read in the Bible. He got a hold of the course. He became a Christian. And then he sent back to the people at Lawrence Avenue and said, hey, we've got a movement going here. And so the Lawrence Avenue folks sent 2 missionaries over there. And this was in 1950. When they got there, they found 10,000 members of the Church of Christ from the work of this one man, C.O. Essen. And I tell you that because the work in Nigeria, which is where things started off, is blooming. It is our largest country as World Bible School students. The country of Nigeria has more Christians than the U.S. Matter of fact, we have study helpers in Nigeria teaching people and students in the U.S. This is how the idea of World Bible School got started. So in 1973, Jimmy gets this idea, says, okay, the correspondence courses worked for folks in World War II. Let's just put an ad in the paper out there. Let me get a hold of this missionary, this guy named Truett Adair. And you may not know who Truett Adair is, but if you've ever heard of the Sunset School of Preaching, the Sunset International Biblical Studies School now, Truett ran that for many, many years. He was the president. So Truett puts this correspondence course in the paper. They get 500 names back, and he wasn't ready to do this. So he had to enlist help of people, had to scramble to get something going. Well, he did, and voila, in 1973 started World Bible School as we know it. So we are in our 51st year, but in 1973, this officially kind of got kicked off, and this was where it was born. It was born out of the idea of a man who had a driven personality, had a love for the lost, combining with other people in different areas of the country, in different areas of the world, to say, hey, what can we do as individuals to reach the lost? And as of last year, the best our calculation can tell, over 40 million people have studied the gospel through World Bible School, but through the brothers and sisters of the Churches of Christ with using World Bible School. So 40 million people. There's many ways that you can teach nowadays, but one of the things that I want to walk through now is just kind of so where do we stand now? We still have a postal way. We have it online. We have Ocean Bridge, and we have something called Methodist. These are important because I want you to know that there are tools out there for you, each and every person here, to be involved if you choose. You don't have to use World Bible School, though. There's other great programs out there. All we ask is that you get involved. Get involved in teaching the lost. So we have the postal program. How many of you knew your grandmother or your mother taught somebody using World Bible School postal things? I'll tell you about, well, I'll get to that in a minute. We'll talk about her later. Last year, we had 729,653 students sign up to study the Bible through our postal program. That's 700,000 people, and that's just people who signed up to study postal through what came through our office. There's this large congregation in Alabama that has their own program, and they order about $80,000 worth of material themselves, and they have a whole thing that they do, and theirs is not included in that, and it's probably upwards of another 200,000 students. Louisville itself, with our program here, with the postal program, you guys do this, and it's about 600 people a month, so it's about 7,200 people. Brad Stevens, thank you for coordinating that. But he gets names every month that people who have signed up. Now, we recognize that it's only maybe a 2 or 3% chance that somebody's going to respond, but you never know when that person responding could be a CAOSN who's going to convert 10,000 people and set a country on fire. Year to date, we have had 121,602 students. 121,000 people sign up to study via the postal system. So if you can get involved in that, please do. If you got questions about it, see Brad Stevens. Our online, this is probably the biggest thing that people get involved in. There is no cost at all for you to teach somebody online. We had 167,120 new students in 2023. And about 5% of the people that sign up go through and continue on lessons, okay? So you can do the math with that. But last year, 167,000. Year to date, 63,862 is how many we have. Right now, for the stats for Louisville, in case you guys don't know, you have a very active program coordinated by Gary Miley. So Gary, thank you. Appreciate everything that you do for this. Right now, you have 31 active students. You got 6 active study helpers. So what that means is you got 6 people who are actively studying using World Bible School, doing this, and they're studying with 31 active students. To date, almost 3,600 lessons have been completed by students through the online system here at Louisville. 1,127 certificates have been awarded, and a certificate gets awarded when a student completes a whole lesson, or a whole series of lessons, which would be a course. So it's very active. That's 3,600 people who have heard the gospel, who aren't here, but who worldwide through the congregation. Thank you. You want to make a difference? Right now, as of tonight, we have 3,200 people who have signed up online who are waiting to be adopted by a study helper. 3,200. And I tell you that because it's not very hard to sign up. It's not very hard to become a study helper. It doesn't take a lot of time. If you want to know about this, ask Jerry Spradling. Now, the problem is sometimes here at Louisville, you sign up and you go to adopt somebody, you get a message and you see that, but Jerry's already adopted them, so he's pretty quick. But I was talking to Jerry and he was telling me about a guy named Stephen who contacted him through online and then through Facebook, and Stephen's helping him, and it's just the connections because of what Jerry's been doing with this online program and reaching others and reaching others and reaching others. Now he's connecting with another one, and so the tentacles kind of spread out and go. You never know where it's going to end. It takes probably 5 minutes to sign up. You don't have to know a lot either. This is a beautiful thing. If you're worried and nervous about, I don't know enough to teach somebody. You know what? You don't have to know. You just have to be able to log in, look at a test. It's automatically graded for you, answers those, and then you know what? If you're not sure about an answer, you're not sure about something, then you pick up the phone and you call Keith. Pretty simple. So, there's not much to it. But thank you, Louisville. Thank you for your involvement with the online program with World Bible School. It has been very effective, and it continues to be very effective, and it's one that we're working on. We actually just had to double all of our RAM on our servers on Friday because in the last 6 months, we have doubled our traffic. So there's people out there who are wanting to study. And the way that we get people, might say, how do you get people to study? How do people want to study? Well, who in here has ever Googled anything? All right. I got some very tech-savvy people, right? You guys are really good. You Google something. Well, if you were to Google free Bible study, well, then there's going to be some things that pop up. In one of the ads that'll pop up, we pay so much to have our ads pop up, and so that'll pop up. And people will click on that, and that's how they get it. Now, that vast majority of people who do this are in the countries of India and Africa, or the continent of Africa and the country of India, and then several of those in Africa. They are hungry, they are thirsty for this, and a lot of times these people do not have internet access like we have here today. They are logging in on a phone when they hit a Wi-Fi spot where they'll pay for minutes to get on Wi-Fi, and they'll download things, and our program allows them to download an entire PDF of a Bible. So maybe they don't have one, but they can download one on their Bible, on their phone, because most everybody has a phone. They just don't have 24/7 access to internet like we do here. But once they do, and they load up, and they've got those, you can study with them. They can answer all their questions when they get back and load them up. So what this does is, it affords you the opportunity to build a relationship with somebody across the world, and sometimes even in the U.S., to teach them the gospel. Alice and I were in Colorado Springs back in October, and we were there, and we were at the Pikes Peak congregation. At the Pikes Peak congregation, they have a wonderful program there. They do a lot, and they work with several missionaries, but they have a lady who's there. His name is Barbara, who helps coordinate their program. She puts all of their information into a spreadsheet. She does all of it. I mean, she literally, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of names a month, or probably 1,000 names a month. She puts into a spreadsheet and does that. Now, Barbara doesn't have the use of her hands. She does everything with a pencil in her mouth and using her foot as to control the mouse. So when we think about excuses about why we can't teach the lost, or we can't do something, we can't help and serve and do those things, maybe we should think about people like Barbara, who, even though she use her hands. But what's neat about Barbara is not only did she help coordinate that program, she's an online study helper. And so Allison we were in Colorado Springs, went down to Pueblo, and I was preaching there Sunday morning, Sunday night, and I had set up a booth outside, out in the foyer, and this lady came up and said to Allison, hey, I really love World Bible School. And Allison goes, oh, really? Well, tell me about that. She goes, yeah, I became a Christian last year through World Bible School. And about that time, perked up and said, really? Well, tell me, how did that happen? She goes, yeah. She goes, do you know Barbara? Like, yeah, I know who Barbara is. And then she proceeded to tell me that, hey, she was a Jehovah's Witness, and she was trying to figure out what was next. She knew that what she was learning couldn't be right. She was looking for something. She Googled free Bible course, and this popped up. She signed up and studied, and the system paired her with somebody, and then she got paired with Barbara. And Barbara was her study helper. And Barbara lives about an hour away. And what was really cool is that she studied with her, and they've been able to meet, they've been able to converse and do things, but they developed a relationship. And they were studying. And then this young lady in Burleson, Texas, she's one of our follow-up partners. And so when Barbara said, hey, she wants to be baptized, Kayla goes, not a problem. I know somebody that can get them set up. She contacted the preacher there at the Southwest Church of Christ in Pueblo, Colorado, got them set up, and got her plugged in with that congregation. So you had a person in Colorado Springs who was a study helper, then you had somebody in Burleson, Texas, and them together helped this seeker find a congregation and get plugged in. Working together. In Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12, Ephesians 4, Paul is really adamant that we work together as a body. In those chapters, he specifically hits on the fact that we are different, and there's a lot of us, but we have to operate as one body. Maybe your thing is not necessarily being able to visit people who are sick, because you're maybe as soft as a porcupine. Maybe you have no empathy. Maybe that's not your thing, but maybe your thing is that, hey, you can study with somebody because that's something you can do. Maybe your thing is that you can help with service. The point is that Paul's saying is we've all been given a gift by God. And oh, by the way, God has given those gifts, and then he brings us together. If we're to believe what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 12, he's put people together. And then in Ephesians 4, he put people where he needed them in the body so that the body can grow and be built up. Now, when you turn over to Romans 12, let's look at this real quick. But the idea is that we have a responsibility to each other. And he says, just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not have the same function, that's verse 4. Verse 5, so in Christ we who are many form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given us. If a man's gift is prophecy, let him use it in proportion to his faith. If it is serving, let him serve. If it is teaching, let him teach. If it is encouraging, let him encourage. If it's contributing to the needs of others, I think we maybe talked about that this morning. I don't know if you were here and heard a sermon on Matthew 25 there. So, if it's contributing to the needs of others, let him give generously. If it is leadership, let him govern diligently. If it is showing mercy, let him do it cheerfully. I think in each one of those, there's something that all of us could do. We may not be good at every single one of them. We may only be good at one of them. But you know what? If we're good at one, let's do it well. This is what is so interesting is because this is why, as a body, as a church group, as a group of Christians here at Louisville, and then as a group of Christians around the world, we can all be involved no matter what our age is, no matter where we are in our station in life. There is something we add to the body. We just have to get involved. There's a lady whose name is Ruth Orr. And Ruth helped Jimmy Lovell when he first got started out. Her and her husband lived in South Georgia. They were missionaries. And she helped him finally really kind of get going with a lot of things. And she was a study helper for many, many years, doing everything postal. And she tells various stories about things, about her experiences with them. And I was reading something she had written, and one of them was that, hey, you know, I was writing to somebody, and I said, yeah, you know, it's one of my students, and said I was trying to connect with them, said it's really kind of tough right now in our life. We're here, and we've got a small house. We've only got 3 bedrooms. We got 6 kids, and it's kind of been tough, and trying to get only 1 bathroom, so it's kind of tough. We got 1 bathroom. Imagine this: 5 girls, 1 boy, 1 bathroom, right? And you just imagine the chaos that's there. And so she's telling this. Well, she said the young man or whomever, this young man that she was talking with wrote back and said, "What's a bathroom? There's 14 of us, and we have 2 rooms in our house." She said, "I never, ever wrote about where I was in my life because it was so much better than what they had." But see, Ruth, the story about Ruth doesn't end there. Ruth's husband passed away unexpectedly. He had cancer. And Ruth, like I said, had been involved with Royal Bible School, but she reached a point and said, well, what am I going to do now? You know what Ruth did? She got more involved. And by the time Ruth had passed away in 2006, I believe it was, over 20,000 people had obeyed the gospel as a direct result of what Ruth Orr did. She was probably the most impactful missionary for the churches of Christ in the 70s and 80s. Simply because she didn't let her station in life slow her down. And she loved people. We have an Ocean Bridge program, we call it now, and thankful to Louisville. You've been one of the partner congregations that helped us pilot this. Jeannie Green, thank you so much for everything you've done. It has been wonderful. I love it because we had 43 congregations last year. We have about 47, and of those, probably 75% of those I've helped set up, and I always spend multiple phone calls, multiple trips helping them figure out the program a little bit because we bypassed the postal system. I don't have to do that here. It's actually nice because I'll call Jeannie. Hey, do you have such and such and such and such that I can send to somebody? Yeah, not a problem. Boop, and she sends it off to me. So I really appreciate the work that Louisville has done. Why this is different? Well, guys, remember the COVID thing, right? A few years ago. Remember how everything shut down and then everything worldwide shut down? And we're mostly back to going here in the U.S., and especially our postal systems. That's not the same way in the rest of the world. So we've recognized that postal systems are not very reliable. Even in the country of South Africa, you would think South Africa, its postal system is horrendous. And so we've had to figure out a way, how do we bypass that? And so we've done that with what we call Ocean Bridge. It's a 2-way scanning. And the way that works is we have volunteers in the field who go to schools and prisons in 6 countries. They go to schools and prisons. Imagine that, going to a school and getting all the kids in the school to fill out a lesson about God and being welcomed by the leaders of that school to come in and do that. And then not only that, are you welcomed by that, then all of a sudden when your president shows up in Nigeria for this, they bring in the news station, they bring in the governor, they bring in this and make it, and they have a national news in Nigeria about students being able to take courses. A little bit different than what we find here. Now, The difference is in Nigeria, the government's not very stable. They don't have the freedoms we have here, so they can't, quote unquote, worship in peace, but yet they can do some things that we can't here. But they go into these schools, they go into these prisons, and they get students to fill out those lessons. So just like the paper lessons, but they fill them out, they send them in. And then somebody in those countries we have a service center there, they will send those back. And then, like here, Jeannie will go in, she'll print them off, they'll get graded, she'll scan them back, load them back up, and they get delivered with the next student because we've printed those lessons already in country, and it saves a lot of money, and it makes things a lot quicker. So last year, we had 61,543 new students with that. Of those, they completed 95,000 lessons. We're seeing about a 20, anywhere from 25 to 40% retention rate of somebody who starts a lesson, they continue to the next lesson. So far, and so we have 48 active congregations so far this year. Right now, this year, we've had 16,938 students. Louisville has 1,633 of those students. So you've made a big impact. If you do the math, that's almost 10% of those students come through congregation here. So thank you. Thank you for your participation in what you do with reaching the lost. Our countries are Ghana. We'll back up so you can see where Ghana is. Ghana, Kenya, it's over there, Nigeria. And again, Nigeria is our most fruitful country. It's the hungriest country. It's the country that had 10,000 people back in the 50s, and now they have over 2 million. They have churches as large as we have in the United States with elderships. They oversee a lot of works over there. Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and those are the countries we are in so far. We actually are just now, this past month, started in South Africa, and we have something going in South Africa, so we'll have that, and then we're looking to establish in Malawi. And the reason it takes us a while to get established is because we have to have the infrastructure, and it costs about $60,000 to print a section of the lessons, and then it costs probably another $60,000 to get a service center set up and all the infrastructure done there. So, we're limited by what we can do, but we are going as fast as we can, and we're seeing great results. And I appreciate your partnership, Louisville, in what you've done for us. If you want to help and you want to be a studier, a study helper, it's easy enough. You can scan this barcode and you can sign up. That'll take you to our website. You can scan down and you can click on to sign up to be. Remember with that, if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or Gary Miley can help you. So could Jerry. There's a lot of folks that are very involved. But I want to get it across to you guys. It's simple. And it's something that you can do. If you were wondering, how can I get involved? Maybe you can't make it to services every single time because of your health. Maybe you can't make it because of your work schedule. Maybe you can't do some of these things, but I don't know. I mean, the older I've gotten, the more time I spend in doctor's offices, and those doctor's offices are always really quick, right? Well, the nice thing is you're waiting, and maybe instead of scrolling Facebook, you're on your phone, you can actually study with somebody. You spend a few minutes a day. And I promise we don't do it for ourselves, right? We do this, one, because Jesus told us to make disciples. We do it, two, because people are lost. And that's something our world has forgotten. And sometimes in the church, we forget that people who have not obeyed the gospel are not in a saved position. That's why we do it, but one of the benefits of doing this also is the feelings that come along with that helps us as we reach out to others. What's your gift? What can you do? What have you thought about doing that you are scared to do? Think about that. Think about how you can contribute to more than just your day-to-day life. I do want to end with something kind of a little lighthearted. So, most of you guys know I travel an awful lot. I've put over 80,000 miles on a car in 2 years, and that does not include the 200,000 miles I've flown and then the other 30,000 miles that I've driven in rental cars. But some of you know I've got a little buddy that travels with me, right? Remember Sparky? And some of the cool things about Sparky and my travels are I get to see people who used to worship at Louisville. So if you see up there, we've got the Bakers. Many of you know the Bakers. Several of you know the Randalls. And then Harmon and Charisma. I don't know if you know that guy on the right. Kind of looking funny there, got a goofy smile on. And then some of our students. But I throw that up there because what's nice is, did you notice that in Romans 12, one of the things that he said that you could have a gift in is encouraging? Those college students, when you send them those letters of encouragement, it makes their day. When you send Jeff a thank you or a text, or you write a note to him that, hey, I was thinking about your brother, I appreciate all that you're doing, it makes his day. When you send a text to somebody who used to worship with you, who is a good friend, and you haven't seen them in a while, that makes their day. Why? Because we're all part of a body. We're all part of the body of Christ. It's one body, he's the head. And we all have a part to play. The question is, am I playing my part? Am I helping the gospel? Am I playing my part and doing what I can to build the body up? I don't know what your needs are. Don't know where things are for you. But I do know this. We all struggle and we all have difficulties. But we also have good times. And if you're having a good time and you're in one of those good times, reach out to somebody else that's not. Put your arm around them. Listen to them. Help them. Because as the body of Christ, together, we can fight the devil. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate your time. Not sure if you have a need. Don't know if you have a need, if you have not been baptized, if you have not obeyed that gospel. As I said earlier, until you've been baptized in the blood of our Savior, you have not had your sins forgiven. Don't leave here tonight without having made a decision on your eternity. Maybe you've done that, but you just need some prayers. Whatever needs you have, if you will come now as we stand and as we sing.